Cache-maniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
I'm Daryl W4. Welcome back to GeoGearHeads episode 192. Normally we have the bad cop with me to do these shows, but he's taking a little bit of a sabbatical, I guess, out to a Seahawks game. But before we actually start the show, Chris is going to join us real quick. Welcome to the show, and hope you're enjoying the game out there.
Well, Daryl, I just consider it an upgrade to my studio. It's a little bigger, and you got 68,000 people to join you. I mean, what more do you want?
Well, a little bit better audio quality and connectivity would be nice.
Oh.
That's got to be the biggest studio audience you've had for GeoGearHeads so far, isn't it?
Hey, are we on the Jumbotron?
Let's see. Can you see it back there? No, not yet. Give me a chance.
Okay.
I just got to find the control center, and I can hack my way in.
Awesome, and we have to get that studio audio so that you know when everyone's giving that rousing ovation to the Land Monkeys, who is our special guest tonight.
Exactly, and give it up for the Land Monkeys! Sorry, guys. Woohoo! Oh, do you hear them back there now?
Yeah.
That's for you. Okay.
And as we already mentioned, welcome to the show, Land Monkeys. We're glad to have you on. And we're going to be talking about road caching today, which, Chris, you're obviously out on the road right now.
Exactly. Now, caching at a stadium before a game of this size is really hard to do. There are just way too many muggles around. However, it's not impossible.
No, though I imagine that you might have some LEOs.
Lots of them, yes, lots of them. And
so
there are several puzzle caches right around the stadium here. Based on art on the walls or different player stats. So it's actually interesting.
So the type of puzzles that you can get all that information now and go back and actually do them later.
Right, and they're within a couple of blocks of the stadium, so they're not right at the stadium proper.
Something to do during halftime.
Good point. Of course, there are Munsies here.
Oh, of course there's Munsies.
Yes, of course. So you can be grabbing Munsies while you're in the seat waiting for the next play.
Hey, and Chris, this gives you the perfect chance to test Munsie 3.0.
I started it up and applied some of the filters to look around. It looks really nice.
I am very impressed with the little bit I've seen of it. It looks like a much better interface all the way around. Definitely something that's easier to use. Yeah,
it's going to be easier to use. And I think even the non-premium members are going to see some advantage in this new update. So I think you're going to get some of the premium benefits without being a premium member.
Yeah, very cool looking app. But we'll talk about that on a later date, because right now we're talking about caching on the road. However, we do want to talk about the contest from last week, which seemed to throw some people for a loop, especially the people who actually watched the YouTube video. Something I think was going a little bit funky with the audio there. But it was not an easy question, because what we asked is the link, the name of the link from the account page to create a custom route. And that did give people some pause, because they wanted to go into the route caches along the route function first and give us that, and some people actually went so far as to copy the URL and put it in there. But Chris, do you remember what that correct answer was?
Daryl, I don't.
See,
sorry.
It's not, it's not just you guys.
It's one of those things that I looked at after we asked the question. I was like, well, I have to find this out. And, I looked at it and go, oh, that seemed rather easy. I want to say it's along the right-hand side of the web page.
It is exactly that. It's along the right-hand side of the web page. It's a real quick, easy link just called Create a Route.
Is that what's called, Create a Route? Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't get much
That's
easier.
That's what I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember the exact verbiage.
Yeah, well, there's so many items on that page. It's really, really tough to find what you're looking for because it's just a sea of links, and you've got all the logs on the left side. But it's a great resource, and that's really about the only page I generally go to on geocaching.com these days, because that's how you get to everything, including your pocket queries.
Nice. Well, Daryl, I think the ambient noise is starting to pick up here a little bit.
Well, that's because we started the show, and they're so happy that they're getting all this valuable information.
I think we've made it onto the Jumbotron.
Awesome. Well, in that case, I think we better announce the winner. So, Laura, would you care to tell us who that was?
It is Team Orville.
And they should be very, very excited. And as a matter of fact, I know they are because they already emailed back. They got a 100-day paid membership to project-gc.com. So thank you very much, project-gc.com, for donating that, and congratulations, Team Orville, who, I might add, had some problems with that answer as well, but I did throw a bunch of those in. If you tried, I still threw you guys into the drawing because it was a little bit confusing this week.
Nice.
Daryl, you're so very generous.
Yeah, well, wait till you see the question for the prize next week, because that one's going to be really easy.
Okay. Well, that's why I'm the bad cop. I want things to be more difficult.
Hey, every so often we'll throw a difficult one in there, but we need the easy ones. Especially because we want people to play with project-gc.com because it is so cool, and we have another show coming up on Project-GC in just a few weeks.
Great. So, guys, if you're having trouble getting information for your challenge caches, head over to project-gc.com. and take a look there. It's going to give you a lot of information that you need to complete those puzzles or those challenge caches.
Absolutely. And thanks again for chipping in for a little bit and getting us up on the Jumbotron.
Yeah, hey, no problem. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Goodbye, all.
Take care.
Well, we also had another contest that wrapped up, and that was the iTunes review contest, and that was real simple. All you had to have done is submit an iTunes or Stitcher, but we got no Stitcher reviews, which is really funny because I know we have a lot of people who use Stitcher, but we still have no reviews on Stitcher, which I'd love to get one. But of all those iTunes reviews, we picked one of them to get a 1-year membership to project-gc.com. Thanks again for that membership. Now, Jay, we put that in the show notes. Would you care to read the winner and that very flattering review?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So the iTunes review contest winner is Jinta29. So congratulations, Jinta29. And what they shared on their iTunes review was an informative and entertaining geocaching podcast. Having tried many others, this is the podcast that I return to and listen to the shows over and over again. Great hosts, useful information, and a wealth of guests to keep things interesting. Wealth of guests, I like that. I look forward to each new episode. A firm 5-star rating from a patron of the GeoGearHeads. Cheers.
Well, thank you very much, Jinta, and thank you for being a patron especially, but also for that 5-star review. We really appreciate it. And, we're going to keep these shows coming because we enjoy it, and we know that you guys do as well. And especially with great guests, we have quite a few good guests coming up in the next few weeks, and we'll tell you more about that later. Meanwhile, Limax in the live Q&A was very excited to see the dancing monkeys.
Are we dancing monkeys tonight?
You were.
All right.
So we are going to be talking about road caching, which is just basically talking about the stuff that you do to get out caching on road trips and business trips and that kind of stuff. Of course, we also want to get some good stories, which I know you guys just finished a significant road trip, including the Black Party. So before we really get into it, do you want to tell us a little bit about that trip?
Sure. Well, do you want to start off?
Nope.
Okay, I'll start off. And you jump in there and correct me. All right. So we took our summer vacation this year and decided that we were going to do a big road trip. We were trying to decide where we were going to go, and eventually we decided that we were going to try and hit a couple of different geo tours and get our timing so that we could actually line them up just right. And we also wanted to hit a fairly epic national park in the US. So what we did is we headed from our home near Vancouver, British Columbia, out across Washington and the skinny top part of Idaho. And our first stop was in Helena, Montana, where we did the Helena Geo Tour, which was pretty cool.
It was.
And if you look at our YouTube channel, you will actually see our videos for that Helena Geo Tour are published and up there, which is kind of cool. Then from there, we went down to Yellowstone and did, I believe the proper term is a metric buttload of Earth caches and virtuals. And from there, we looped back up, went back through Montana, Idaho, and hit the Spokane, what's it, Spokane History Geo Tour? Is that what Lisa calls it? I think that's it. Spokane
I think it's
History.
just the Spokane History Tour or the Spokane Geo Tour, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the word history is in there because JD kept laughing about the acronym, which was SHGT. But hopefully, I didn't just change the rating on your show, Daryl.
Oh, no.
Okay. So we enjoyed that as well, and that tour was only a couple days old by the time we hit that one.
Yeah.
And that was fun. And then from there, headed back home for 2 days.
Yeah.
and then back down to the block party and the ape event. So it was a pretty awesome road trip.
Nice. And it is, I just looked it up. It is a Spokane History Geo Tour.
The H really sticks in my mind because of how many times JD made jokes about it.
Well, let's talk about the planning that you went through, because you guys were coming down from Canada into the U.S. and your data rates in Canada are outrageous to begin with. So I'm sure roaming rates are terrible.
Yes.
What did you guys do to prep for the trip?
Well, what do we do with the cell phone?
First thing we did was we added, I don't think, was it data?
No, we didn't add data.
No, voice and text. Because of course, well, if you have family, you want to be able to stay in touch with them. And at least when we were gone for that long, to basically say, hey, we're here now, or we're leaving here.
Was that like a SIM card that you just got from the US, or was that just the add-on international package?
Yeah. It was just an add-on.
Although to that point, I've started to look at other phones, and there's a couple of phone models that I've seen now that Steve Roy, who was on your show recently, was showing me where you can actually have dual SIM cards in the phone. Yeah,
there are a few of those. They're really, really popular, especially in Asia, because a lot of people over there will have two different SIMs. And it's a really nice feature for like those of us here in the States who have the phone for work, and you're not allowed to use it for personal calls. So you get the personal SIM to put into the same phone, so you're not dealing with two different phones.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would love to have that with like a Rogers SIM, so that I can go over to Canada and use the data and everything as a native Canadian device.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, so for us, we just planned that we weren't going to use the phone for any kind of caching, and now I did try to do. No, that was on a different trip. I tried to do Munzie offline, and it kind of works, and it kind of doesn't work. So,
well, you'll have to try the 3.0 app and see if that fixed the issue.
I hope so. Yeah, because it used to work and then it stopped working. So, anyway.
Ooh. Yeah, I've heard issues like that before with the Munzie app, and it seems, from what I've understood, to be issues with the cache file on the phone itself. So sometimes if you delete the app, reboot, and reinstall, it will start working again, but you lose any of those offline caches.
Kind of defeats the purpose, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, so that was what we did with respect to the phone.
Yep.
So it was really there for emergency use, and just also to communicate with the family. And as Mrs. Land Monkey was saying, for us to just say, hey, this is where we are. And if we changed up our schedule, because we did change our schedule a little bit on the fly, just to make sure that everybody back home knew where we were supposed to be and where we were sleeping for the night, etc.
All right. So you took the phones with you. Did you take any GPSRs?
Oh yeah, we always travel with our GPSR.
We live off with our GPSR.
And which ones are those?
Well, we only have one.
Oh, okay. Singular.
That's the eTrex 30.
Oh, nice. That's actually my preferred one now. But of course, you have to load in the PQs or whatever. So,
yes.
How are you building those pocket queries or other GPX files to load in there?
So this was our summer of road trips, because we actually earlier in the summer did a few other road trips to GeoCoin events, etc., down in the States. And so we've learned a lot this year about what to do and what not to do. And I think the first thing that we learned, which we definitely took advantage of on this trip, was we created a pocket query that's just virtuals, webcams, and earth caches for all the states that we would be traveling through. So Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. And it's actually pretty easy to do on geocaching.com to create those with the new search tools, etc. So we did that. You never know if you're going to change your route. So if you just, those rare cache types, if you only had them along a route and you changed your route and then you ended up somewhere where maybe there was an amazing earth cache or a webcam, you're going to kick yourself when you get home because you didn't catch it. So there's really not that many of those. So to have them all in a PQ and just have them always loaded on the GPSR it's not a big deal. And it's just nice to have. It's like that safety net.
Yeah, definitely. Quick comment from Limax in the live Q&A. He said that they had trouble a couple of years ago on a road trip to Idaho where he didn't use pocket queries properly and led to missing a lot of caches in Oregon where there's no cell coverage. He did do better this year, though, so congratulations. And, I've run into problems with the pocket queries off of geocaching.com myself. I think they've gotten those all fixed, but it was not uncommon that my pocket queries from GC would come down missing a bunch of caches.
Yes.
I think we found that a few years ago when we were trying to load all the caches when we were doing, I think, the Heart of the Mojave. Where, and it's just one long road and you're looking at it and all of a sudden there's a spot.
On this 1,000 cache highway trail, why is there a 1 mile spot with no caches?
Yeah. Well, I was having that problem with radial searches. And when I started going back and looking at it, it was, okay, the pocket query was set up for 500 caches at 10 miles or whatever it was. It doesn't go the 10 miles, but there's only like 430 caches in here.
Yeah. Well, you know what, though? That's, for those of us in IT, we get the concept of quality assurance and QA. And I think that's one of the other things that we definitely learned this summer was that you QA before you leave the house. So you QA your pocket queries and do exactly what you're talking about, Daryl. You make sure that if it's a 500 query pocket query or 500
Cache.
item. Yeah, cache, thanks. Pocket query that you've got 500 items. If it's along a route that if it has gaps in it, go and look at the actual map and make sure, oh yeah, those gaps are supposed to be there and things like that. And then make sure you try loading them on the GPX and fire it up, or on the GPS and fire it up and make sure they actually show.
Yeah, I've had that problem many times where it depends on the version of the GPS firmware that you're running, but all it takes sometimes is like a misplaced character that doesn't get filtered out, and boom, it stops loading any of the caches after that point.
Yeah, and you got to be careful about the version of GPX file you use, 1.0 or 1.1 as well. That's something you got to be considering.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if you're taking the ones just off of geocaching.com, almost all of the paperless geocaching devices will process that. You just have to have the GPX file, not the zip file.
Right. Good point.
But it's always safest if you run it through something else. And I shouldn't say that because I've had a number of problems with GSAC where GSAC actually creates problems loading them onto, especially the original Oregon, the 200 and 400 class units. I had a lot of problems with those where it was just munging up the files. But how were you actually doing that? Were you loading all of the GPX files onto the
No.
device, or did you do something when you were traveling with that?
We do something when we were traveling with
Yeah.
it, but you know, it's one of those things of plan and test things. So, like I was saying, we did create several different pocket queries. We'd have ones for the routes, so when we're driving along, we can just keep an eye open for interesting caches. We'd create pocket queries for towns or parks or places of interest that we're staying in. Caches with high favorite points, caches that would fill our challenge requirements. Yay, Project GC. Love that tool. That is so helpful. And then what we would do is we'd create all these PQs, and we'd QA the PQs themselves, just to make sure that they've got the right counts and that they look good. And then we download all of them and save them on a computer that we bring with us. Now, we use a Microsoft Surface Pro 3, and I've got a 1 terabyte USB drive that I take as well. But I also do that because of the vlogging. So we're capturing lots of photos and video as we go as well. And so I want to make sure I've got backups of all that. But we also use the computer for those GPX files. So they're all stored there, and we just load the ones that we need as we go.
It helped us on one of our road trips, I think. I can't remember if it was last year or the beginning of this year, but we were down in the States. So, of course, we don't want to use data. And at that time, I think we were on the road and driving, and all of a sudden the GPS just went. And I'm like,
what did it do?
Okay, I'm not repeating that. Sorry. But it, I'm like, it's not working. You might want to pull over, because at this point, I don't know where we're going. And luckily he had his tablet in there, and stick the 4-way blinkers on, and at least we were out in the countryside anyways, but able to just kind of go back through and reload everything and continue on. Now, if we didn't have that, it would be very interesting as to what we would do. But
yeah, and I should add in there, the other thing that we keep a backup of on the tablet, on the Surface Pro. So I mean, it's a tablet, but it's a Microsoft tablet, right? So it works real well for reloading and saving stuff back and forth to the Garmin GPS. The other thing I keep on there is all my OSM maps.
So yeah, you keep the OpenStreetMaps Garmin files, I'm assuming, the Garmin image files on there, so you could just drag them back if something were to get corrupted.
Yeah, because when you're in a different country and you're on a long road trip, you may not have, especially some of those spots on the highways in Montana, you're not going to have Wi-Fi anywhere for a long time.
Right.
that would also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that would also be part of the planning, because it's not something I always think about. You have your GPS and you just load your file and you think you're fine, and then you realize, oh, my GPS doesn't cover that area. I have no maps. There's just little icons with blank space. So that's one thing to think about too, that you might want to check what your map covers on your GPS.
Yep. And
excellent point.
In addition to that, we also use the trails, Northwest Trails, and layer that on top of the OSM maps. So have backup copies of all of that stuff. And I mean, Northwest Trails now, it covers, we had the trails in Montana were on there as well. So, I mean, it's the extended Northwest Trails.
Well, what are you doing about the phones then? And are you just preloading all of the GPX files then onto the phone?
We don't really use the phone at all. We pretty much just cache off the GPS. The one time we did use the phone was when we went to Cuba earlier this year.
Yes.
Where you're not allowed to bring a GPS. So what we did is we preloaded the OSM maps and PQs for Cuba onto the phone, and then used that, because you're allowed to bring smartphones, but you're not allowed to bring GPS.
And you can, so with that, you can use the...
you just put it on GPS mode.
Yeah.
You don't have to use any data.
So then there's no data used, and you can just work that way.
Right. And are you keeping any backups aside from the ones on that 1 terabyte drive with you, or are you just hoping that the 1 terabyte drive doesn't fail?
Well, there's the hard drive on the tablet itself, and then the 1 terabyte drive. So that's, there's two layers of backup there.
So you have it in both locations for the whole trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
You just never know. And I know talking to spent some time talking with Sunny and Sandy this summer, and talking to Sunny, he has I think 3 or 4 levels of backup that he does. So
yeah, I was going to say, this is one of those things that anyone who works with computers a lot will know. Always make sure you have multiple copies of those files, because you never know what might happen, especially it's that stupid user problem. And I've done this more times than I care to admit, where I'll delete the wrong file.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've done that a couple times.
Yep.
Which, it's not so much of a problem if you notice that you've deleted it right away. It's when you find out, like 3 or 4 days later, when you've started loading up more files onto the device, that, oops, I don't have those anymore.
Yeah. Those YouTube clips of chimpanzees screaming and running around. That's what it looks like when I realize I deleted the file wrong. Bad
All right,
monkey.
Well, we've talked about Project-GC. Are you creating the Pocket Queries, the GPX files out of there, or just using them for the challenge validation?
We use that for the challenge validation. I haven't tried creating Pocket Queries out of Project-GC. I know you can. Probably be a cool thing to try out and just see how well that works for us.
Yeah, that's a paid member function, but yeah, I've used that quite a few times, and I absolutely love it. Makes a lot of things a lot easier, especially when you're looking for filling a Jasmer challenge or something like that. You can just create a GPX file for all of those that would qualify you, put it in the GPS or smartphone or whatever, and then you have just those caches and you can focus on it.
That's cool. Well, and speaking of the concept of just those caches, one of the other things we learned, particularly when you're doing GeoCoin challenges, is we download the GPX files for the Geo tours that we were going to do. So Helena and Spokane, we had those GPX files just by themselves as well. And we learned that when you're doing the Geo tour, take everything else off except for your virtuals, Earth caches, and webcam GPX file. You have that on, and then you just put on the GPX file for the Geo tour. And that way you're not distracted by the 8 million other traditionals, magnetic nano stuck under a bus stop, as opposed to getting the caches you're really looking for. That was a trick she figured out earlier this year, and that works really well.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a few times. No matter what you're doing, if you have to be somewhere on time, make sure to remove all those extra caches, because we're all the caches I know of are like this. It's, ooh, there's a cache. Let's just go get it. It's not going to take that long.
Yeah, there's always just another cache.
Add them all up and sure.
Yeah. Actually, another trick that Mrs. Land Monkey came up with. You want to talk about that one?
Is that a trick?
Well,
I don't know.
It's a tool to keep a tool from being a tool.
Is that speaking from experience there, honey? On our road trip, we were trying to find our hotel. And, well, if you've never been to some of these states before, that's nice to have an address, but trying to find it on a very small map on your GPS is very difficult to do. And he says, well, let's just drive down this road. Okay. And he's like, well, I can't. Well, it was one of the hotels we were trying to find. We were kind of on the right road, and we literally were on the wrong side of the tracks. I can say that because we did actually have to cross over the railroad, and it was on the other side. But we spent an awful lot of time driving around on the city side going, where is this hotel? And getting frustrated. And I said, I can navigate you there if you put a cache on there that's, because there's always caches everywhere. There's always one that's right beside the hotel. So I've always said, if you could just pick a cache that's by the hotel and make sure it's on there. We write down the GC code. We know what the name of it is. You can find it in there and navigate to it. Otherwise, we're just kind of driving around aimlessly. But twice we did that, and it's a little frustrating.
So what I do now is whenever we're going on a road trip and we've got reservations either at a campsite or a hotel or anything like that, I always have a hard copy of the reservations with me. And so what I do now is up at the top for each of those locations, I'll write the GC code and the coordinates of the cache that's closest to that location that we want to go to sleep for the night. And then that way, even if something happens and you lost your pocket queries, you can always type in coordinates.
Very, very true. Limax in the live Q&A says that it sounds like he's underutilizing his computer software. He's using it to load the caches onto the GPSR for a trip, and then he doesn't touch the computer again.
Right. I mean, and that's the way we used to do it, but we found that there's just so many geocaches out there that you kind of want to get to a point of you're not going to find everything. So kind of plan what you're going to do and then create various pocket queries and just pop them on, pop them off.
Depends on what you like. I mean, some people want to avoid multis altogether. I
don't know why.
There's some people up here who just avoid them. You don't see very many where I goes.
Nope.
And some people like aiming for that. I mean, a lot of the cities, depending on what cities you go to, there aren't a lot of those around. And
yeah, I do mostly what Limax is talking about here is I just load everything on. Then, I have the files on the computer if I need them. Otherwise, I just don't really touch the GPS. But I don't do most of my caching from the GPS anymore. I'm using the smartphone. So for me, the smartphone is the answer for everything. And with Geosphere, which is what I'm still using, I have the option of the different groups. Most of the other packages will have the multiple databases. So I'll do a lot of that there. Plus, the thing that Geosphere does that I really, really, really want other packages to pick up are highlights. So even within that group, I can go and create a, I can take the Geo Tours or something, highlight all those caches, and then go and add in some of the others around it that I think are interesting. Have them all showing, but the ones that I have to hit are showing with the orange highlight around the pin or on the bar. So to me, that's like the perfect way to do this, because then I have my primaries, and then if I have time, I can hit all those other cool caches.
That's a great idea. I think the only reason we don't do more caching by phone, I mean, with the obvious exception that when we are road trip caching in the US, we just don't want to use data. But the only other reason we don't use the phone, I mean, we could do it offline, just like we did when we went to Cuba. But I just find that it eats through the battery on the phone so fast, and the GPS lasts way longer. And I guess we're just used to the GPS. We just like it.
Yeah, without a doubt, you're going to get much better performance out of the GPSRs, the handheld GPSRs, battery-wise. But if you are doing it on a regular basis, you can get things like the battery packs. Some phones, you can actually swap batteries, which, to be honest, I don't really like that because it means power cycling the phone, and it does take quite a long time to do that. So I've actually gotten hooked on the internal locked batteries, the original iPhone style that I dissed really bad when it came out. But now I've gotten to love it, and I absolutely love having those external battery packs, especially the battery cases, because you put the whole thing in there. It's like just a nicer, bigger phone, a little bit heavier, which some people don't like. But it's, that one piece still. But when that piece dies, I just pull it off and put on a second one. And I can take that and put it in the car, put it in a backpack, whatever, charging off of, carry around sometimes one of those big 1,500 or 15,000 rather milliamp hour batteries, and I can just top off my units from that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that would work. Well, and I guess one of the other things talking about running off the GPSR, and I suppose if you didn't want to be doing roaming data, you'd probably have to do something similar. We try and dump all of our finds every night into GSEC if we can, just so that if something happens to the GPS, and I imagine it would be the same thing if you're on the phone, if something happened to your phone, that you don't lose all your finds for the day. because I don't know about you, but I'm not going to
I wouldn't
remember every
remember.
cache I found.
No. Yeah, I do a lot of the export. This Geosphere does the export field notes, so I do a lot of that when I'm on those trips, and just export it right to Dropbox if I have the data, and to an email if I don't, because the email will just sit there. So at least it's somewhere else on the phone, but I don't have to send it.
That's cool. Yeah, and I think we'd be really interested in hearing other people's ideas of how to safely record offline your cache finds for the day, so that you don't suffer data loss due to electronic malfunctions. And one of the other reasons we don't want to necessarily post them right away, we do a lot of virtuals and earth caches, and I do a lot of earth caches. And by the rules, you should not be posting it unless you've sent the answers in first, and it takes a little while to get those answers together. And some earth caches, it takes a long while to get the answers in. So you want to just sort of have a backup of everything you've done. So I mean, if Darryl, if you've got other ideas, or any of the listeners have other ideas of ways to do that, we're always interested to learn new techniques.
Yeah, definitely be interested in hearing what others do. From the GPSR, though, you really do need the computer to do that, because that is a file that's on a non-connected device.
Yeah.
But some people have talked about actually connecting that to their phones if they have the OTG capability on the phone, and they'll actually copy it to the internal storage on the phone, and then you can also do the Dropbox stuff that way. So you don't necessarily need to do it with a computer, but that is a lot more challenging. We did do a show with Dave DeBear talking about how he's doing that with his Nexus 7, and the same thing works for a number of the other phones. But
Very
it
cool.
is not as easy and straightforward as it should be, especially if you're on a GPSR. If you're on the phone itself, a little bit easier. But one of the things that you didn't really mention about saving those logs to post later, it's one of those situations where, yeah, you're probably not going to have an issue, but by posting that you're finding that cache today, 1,500 miles or more from home, people are going to know you're not going to be home that night.
Yeah.
Gee, if they're, it's one of those situations, they pretty much have to be watching you. But, we've heard of situations where people have been stalked on social media and had their goods stolen from their home.
Yeah, that definitely can happen. And, usually I'm actually quite careful about not posting anything on social media when we're away. This road trip was actually very exceptional. We posted some selfies when we were in Helena, because Helena has something that's called the selfie tour, which I would definitely say if you go to Helena, you should do that, because it's really cool. They take you to some places that they don't have geocaches, because one of them's in the airport, where you can walk into this really cool spot in the airport where they've got a neat mural, and they've got stickers on the ground, and they say stand with your feet in the stickers, and there's instructions on each of the stickers, and take a selfie and post it. It's kind of neat. So it's a variation on the
Very,
thing.
very cool. I want to get to some of these locations that you went before we run out of time, because we are starting to run long. Tell us a little bit about Helena, because that one sounds like it was really cool.
Helena was cool.
Yeah.
The first thing I would say is that if you're planning to go to Helena and do the Geo Tour there, contact those awesome people at the Helena Tourism Alliance for any help and advice on your geocaching visit. We'll make sure that Darryl has the URL for the Helena Geo Tour, so you can post that in the show notes. In fact, on Caching in the Northwest, the Bad Cop and my other podcast, we're actually soon going to have the folks from the Helena Geo Tour on our podcast, so that'll be awesome. And
excellent.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're just super friendly, totally into it. And if you're a mountain biker, Helena is your kind of town. Do you remember how many miles of single track they said they have?
I can't remember, but
It's like hundreds of miles of single track mountain bike trails around.
It's pretty cool.
It is. How long would you say to plan for if you're going to do the Geo Tour in Helena? Like, how long should you plan to be there?
About 2 days. You can't do it all in one day.
No.
In fact, I don't even think we did all the caches. We still had a few left remaining in the tour. But yeah, I would definitely take more than a day. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy it. You're just going to be running around. So
yeah, it's similar to the Spokane History Geo Tour. It covers a really large area, like an entire county. So it takes a while to drive around and get all them.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite cache from the Helena Geo Tour?
I did. There's one there that's called a lock and lock in a lock and lock. And can I tell them what it is? Oh, okay. It's an ammo can that has those lovely locks. So they've soldered locks on the outside that have those four
They're the
alpha numeric,
yeah.
well, not numeric, but the alpha letters on there.
Oh yeah.
And so you have to come up with the words to open these locks, and they're not the same for each one.
Yeah, I had some other 4-letter words, but they weren't opening the locks.
We spent a lot of time there, and yeah, I don't want to give it away, but my goodness, the light bulb finally went on at one point, and finally we got the second one open, but that was my favorite.
Wow.
That one's in one of our episodes on our YouTube channel, so if people want to see that. We don't have any spoilers on it, but it's a cool cache.
Excellent. All right, well, let's move on to Yellowstone, because that's one most people probably don't think of any caches being there.
Right, and the only caches there are virtuals and earth caches.
Oh.
I think that's right? There wasn't anything else.
If you're not a big earth cacher, just go there to see the sites.
Yeah, it's
and the virtuals are good too. But
what an amazing place! What an amazing place! But if you are planning to go there, you got to book your camping way in advance. I think we booked our camping spot about 2 months in advance, and I got the last spot. And it was almost like the last spot in the entire park. It books up early and fast. And if you don't want to camp and you want to stay in a hotel, I think they advise like book a year in advance.
You're not allowed to sleep in your vehicle on the side of the road. They will not allow it. So in order to be in there, you have to book something. So
yeah, I know the lodges are expensive and fill up quickly.
Yeah.
And they usually say, during their peak season, you have to book the day the rooms go up for a reservation, or you're not going to get much.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like we said, there's many earth caches and virtuals because that's all there is, but there's tons of them. Yeah. I would suggest if you are a GPSR cacher like we are, that you find a way to make sure that you have either you print them off in advance or something so that they're a little more easily read through than trying to read through them on the little screen with the little tab. Bring a book to record all your answers and take a gazillion pictures. Take the pictures right away, because we can tell you some stories that we won't tell you on air, but about challenges with getting the answers in for some of the earth caches. Some of the earth cache owners are quite specific about the answers they want, and so
But to their point, if you look at the difficulty rating on their cache, they do have it listed high. So like if it was me who is not good at that kind of thing, I would fail and they probably wouldn't let me get a smiley for my answers. But if you don't want to put the effort in for some of them, I guess
then watch the difficulty level.
Then watch the difficulty level and pick the easy ones.
Well, another point to the printing out or whatever on those listings is you have to remember that most devices will have a limit on the amount of text that they can house. And many of those earth caches, when I put them on the Garmin especially, get truncated because the text goes beyond. And I've had a number of them that really bug me because there's like this, 4 or 5 page expose. Then it has the questions. So I'm not even halfway through when it cuts off.
Well, and the other thing on that, Daryl,
get the questions to be answered.
Yes, yeah. And the other thing on that is sometimes when they're explaining something that you need to observe, there's going to be pictures that you need to actually be able to see, and you won't see that on a GPSR.
Well, on most GPSRs, there are most of the newer Garmin's and the Magellans will actually let you load in the images, but you have to use some other software to get those images in.
Mm.
Okay.
Well, and I would imagine it. What is it? The Montera, the brand new one from
Yeah.
Garmin.
The new Montera, yeah.
Yeah, that would probably work.
I think actually the older Montera worked as well. I know the new eTrex do, but it can be a pain in the butt to get those in there.
Yeah, so sometimes it's just easier to print off the pages and put them in a binder.
And the problem is, even when you have those in there, you're not going to see a whole lot of detail.
No, you're not. No, you're right. Absolutely.
The screens on these GPSRs don't even house or won't even display like a full, VGA image usually.
Right. Yeah.
So
they're not designed for that, right? That's not.
Absolutely. Even if you have the ones that do the phone or the cameras in them, what you're seeing is a down-sampled version. And sometimes they'll have the zoom in buttons, but when it's in the cache listing, that's not really an option.
No, not at all. Although one of the things that, I was going to say one of the other things that we learned and we did, which was really awesome. They have $1 by donation guidebooks in the park lodges and the interpretive centers that really help with the earth caches. So it's definitely worth the few dollars to pick those up.
Excellent tip. Now, Limax said that he went to Yellowstone a few years ago and tried to get caches for the area, but he was relying too much on Wi-Fi, which was less prevalent back then. Thus, no caching happened in Yellowstone, so it's on his list to do. And that's a good point, is whenever you're in any of the national parks, pretty much assume no connectivity whatsoever.
Yeah, especially Yellowstone. Yeah. It's massive.
Yeah, Yellowstone, Yosemite, and any of those things, and there's a lot of those parks out west where you're not going to have a lot of cell phone coverage, even getting to and from the park.
Yeah, and that's the same for a lot of the parks up here in BC. Even a provincial park near us, Manning, yeah, there's no reception once you're in the park. So, yeah. Virtual caches. Do you want to talk about those cool ones you found?
You mean we found?
Well, you did most of them.
Okay. Virtuals, I think there was 4 of them, and they were called Yellowstone Forever. And they actually were all on grave sites. And I don't think many of them or any of them are marked in the tours. Or like if you went inside and had a thing, they don't point you out to this. So the first one we went to, there was a trail, but not a trail up to the hill part that we climbed up. But it was neat to see some of the stuff. And when we answered the questions, I think it was, I don't remember her name, but
the cache owner.
The cache owner responded back and actually gave us a little more information on these graves, who they belonged to. Explained that one of them was a military graveyard, one was a civilian, and I think she had a book that she had quoted at one point to say this is where she had gotten some of her facts from. But I thought it was very cool just to get a little bit more background as opposed to what was just on the page, because of course a lot of people don't read what's on the page. They just go to the coordinates, yep, that's the answer, and off they go. Mm-hmm. So for those who are historians and like that kind of thing, and I just thought it was kind of fascinating. And I found most of them, it's not something you would find by walking through any of the park there. You wouldn't even know it's there.
No, you wouldn't. And I think that's the thing. Like a lot of the time when we do virtuals, it's, go check out this sign or go check out this thing and tell me about it. And it's stuff that's pretty easy to find or read about. But these ones were really unique in that you had to go off the beaten path and find these spots where all of a sudden there's this little unmarked grave. And then she's provided you, the cache owner, with a little bit of information in the cache description that is fascinating. She asked something about the spot, you email her back, and like Mrs. Lammonkey said, all of a sudden you get all this more information. It's like, wow, that's so cool.
I like that.
Cool. Oh, that's a lot of what I like about the virtual caches is getting all that additional information that, like you said, you can't even find these places unless you had something like the virtual cache to bring you there.
There is a few in there that were kind of more of, I guess, maybe why they just canceled virtuals where I'm sorry.
Does this rock look like a frog?
No, that was an Earth cache.
That's right, it was.
Okay. Okay, I better not say anymore because if those cache owners are listening, they're not going to be very happy with me.
I'm being the bad cop tonight.
But there were some virtuals, which is I think were you just kind of showed up and what was the number on the, nothing of significance, which is why I said I liked the Yellowstone forever. There was a little bit more to it than just looking for a digit or something. So.
Well, I'm not going to be able to let you guys go until you give us a little bit more information about that trip to Cuba, because it's one of those destinations most cachers I don't think have even thought about, especially because you can't bring a GPSR.
Well, that was in February. Yeah. We did a vacation, the two of us. We've actually got a bunch of videos on our YouTube channel from that as well. If you search back through I can't remember what episode numbers, I think it's in the 80s. Anyways, and you can see some of that. It was a lot of fun. We actually met a Muggle couple on the first day that we befriended and turned them into geocachers. Yeah, there's not a lot of caches in Cuba. And most of them are found by Canadians or Germans, found or placed by Canadians or Germans, because that's sort of the big tourism in Cuba.
There's a lot well, I shouldn't say a lot, but I was going to say Earth caches to traditionals is pretty even because, as Jay says, Canadians and German people visit there a lot. So guess who makes the Earth caches, because you don't have to maintain them.
Well, that's the thing, right?
So we actually do have an Earth cache in Cuba now, from going down,
that we created.
Yeah. But
well, and as I understand, the tourism business down there is really ramping up now that the U.S. has lifted the ban on travel, and that sounds like it's going to be a more and more popular destination. So we'll have to see how the caching develops down there as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it will. And it's a beautiful country, amazing place. The history there is spectacularly amazing. I mean, I think most people have a general sense of the history of Cuba, but when you spend some time down there and you talk to some of the people and really start to understand about the, hundreds of years of craziness that went into building the culture and that history there, it's fantastic. It's amazing, beautiful people. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Some great locations for caches.
If you're into old cars, then
if you like really classic American cars,
just don't look inside. They call them Frankenstein cars because they look wonderful on the outside, but they use whatever they can find to make things work on the inside. So no original parts on the inside.
No. Well, it's like a snapshot in time is what I'm told, because no trade after sometime in the 60s. So it's new cars came in up until then, and then that's it. So you've got 50-year-old cars still on the road, and they look pretty good externally, but it's they're not built to take that kind of abuse inside.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a lot. There's a fair number of European cars there as well, because obviously there's no trade embargo with Europe's, but it's more expensive to get a European car over there. So
it's a lot more expensive, and it's amazing at how expensive it is for a lot of things in Cuba, and how little most of those people earn in Cuba.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I would say about caching in Cuba, aside from the obvious stuff, like if you're from up here where the only things that are going to harm you are things that are bigger than you, you have to kind of be using a little bit of common sense, because it's a tropical country, so you got to watch for some of that kind of stuff. But we cached, as we said before, completely off of cell phone, in offline or airplane mode. Not even so much because of regulations, etc. in Cuba. You can use your phone down there if you want, but the quality of the airwaves is not great, and the cost is extraordinary. If you thought Canada was expensive,
Oh yeah, yeah. They were talking on one of the programs recently. It's something like $20 for a day of Wi-Fi somewhere down there. Or actually, I don't think it's even a day. I think it's like 4 hours. It's like $20 for 4 hours of Wi-Fi access, which they said, doesn't sound so bad to us Westerners who are used to hotels that will charge that much. But the problem is down there, most families don't even make $5 a week.
Yeah,
exactly. And even the wired internet connections are slow. So really, it's just all offline caching, and then log them all when you get home.
So is there anything that we might have not touched on yet that you think people should really know from these trips that we talked about? Maybe something that you picked up along the way.
oh,
But like trackables, like our GeoCoin that we got from Helena, our Geo Tour.
Ah, very nice.
The Helena Geo Tour, actually, it's kind of cool. So that made great audio. As I held the handmade coin up to the webcam, but they're clay, and they're individually numbered, and they're loggable. I'm not going to show the number just because I don't want people to log my coin. But they are trackable and loggable, and they're handmade little clay painted coins. And you can actually, when you finish the Geo Tour and you go and pick up your coin, you can choose. Yep, no worries. You can choose what color you want. They have them in a whole bunch of different colors.
okay. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So, anyways, that's that was kind of cool. And then we did the Spokane Geo Tour and got the wonderful new coin that Lisa's minted for that one too.
Yeah, and I hear that that's a great tour to hit and a very, very cool coin. JD was actually telling me a little bit about that in emails not too long ago.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I don't have that one down here. It's upstairs. I should have brought it down, but it's a nice, hefty coin. It's beautiful. They did a really nice job with that.
Yeah, JD might be offended at that, but I'm sure he'll forgive you.
No, the coin is hefty.
No. I meant for not having it on the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I did feature the design of the coin in one of our episodes. So,
and that's what counts, because this is just one of those ancillary appearances to promote that video, right?
You got it. Absolutely. But yeah, I would say if you're going to be driving from the West Coast and heading out to do that general area, if you can try and line up to hit the Spokane Geo Tour and the Helena Geo Tour on the same road trip, man, that makes an awesome trip. There's a couple of really well done Geo Tours.
I would just as well, though, to say, give yourself time. I think they did try to stress that with the Spokane tour, that this is not a tour that you can do in one day. And even when we started to do it, it was like, yeah, no, because they stick a lot of caches that are quite the distance on the outskirts of Spokane. I mean, they're really cool places, but it takes time to drive there, and some of them are hikes, and there's no way you can do it all.
Not in one day.
Not in one day. So I would definitely say, if that's your goal, I would book more. Make sure you give yourself enough time.
2 days you can do it.
At least to accomplish what you're doing. If they still have coins available, because I think sometimes, I don't know if they reprint them, but to pay attention to the times of the store where you're going to claim it. I think because we had that
at the cache cave. Yeah.
Even at when we were in Helena, it was, okay, when we have enough, what time do they close? They close at 6 today. We better make sure that we're not still caching, especially in the summertime when it's so light out late into the evening that you don't come back in and go, woohoo, I'm done, and go, oh, it's closed.
I'm leaving town tomorrow.
I'm leaving tomorrow morning before they open, and I'm done, and I can't get my coin. So that might be one thing to think about when you're planning, is to make sure that you're kind of in the area to
good advice.
Get that coin.
Definitely excellent advice. Thank you very much both for being on the show.
Thank you.
Some great information and some new destinations for people to hit too.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I think we've got a really easy question for your chance at another one of those 100-day memberships to projectjessgc.com. So get your email titled question 193 ready and address it to GeoGearHeads@cachemaniacs.com. In the body, drop your geocaching.com screen name and drop the 3 digits representing the episode number for the last time our guest for next week's show was on the GeoGearHeads. Have that all right and into us by 9 p.m. Eastern. That's 6 p.m. Pacific on the 9th. That's still September, by the way. And we'll drop your name into the drawing for the 100-day membership to project-gc.com. Remember, that's question 193 with your screen name and the number for just the last time that Walt was on the GeoGearHeads. Address it to geogearheads.com by 9 p.m. Eastern on the 9th. And that's because he'll be joining us at 9:10 p.m. Eastern, which is also 6:10 p.m. Pacific, that following day, which is Thursday the 10th. And that's for Randomized Show 37, a great time for you to get any of those comments, questions, any of the stories that you might find that you want us to talk about. Send those all in because the randomized shows are perfect for that. We're really excited the following week for episode 194 to have Rock Chalk back on to talk about the geocaching.com guidelines yet again. And please send us your questions to pass along to him, and we'll see about getting some answers for those. September 24th, we already mentioned it, project-gc.com. He's going to be back on another time to talk about what's going on and give us some tips. Then the first show of October, October 1st, funny how that it works out to be the first show of October, is going to be community partnerships, and we're going to have the guy who's responsible for getting the West Bend Cash Bash out and talk about some good community involvement there. That's probably one of the best poster channels you're going to find. So make sure to send us any of your comments and questions for that one as well. October 8th, episode 197, we're going to be talking with a few different people about caching by yourself. So a lot of great shows. You can always join us live at 9:10 p.m. Eastern, 6:10 p.m. Pacific through the Google Plus Hangout on Air, including the live Q&A. And of course, send us all of your emails and voicemails because we love playing your audio on the show. Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Suffenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show is copyright 2015 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.